I am live. It's bright and light, which is good to read. Prelude to the landing on planet Earth. It's the 25th of February today, and I am continuing reading chapter 5. I had a bit of trouble with it, garbled, but last recording was fine. Encounters with the opposition. This is an account of a journey which has not yet started, but the trio seems to have been connected now. Phyllis Schlemmer, Sir John Whitmore, and Andrija Puharich, who was a scientist. They're meeting and discussing. We are here in the, I think it might be the third part of chapter 5. So, field theory, biology, lends support to the concept of reincarnation. In a sense, we are reincarnated many times in the course of our normal lifespans, so we shouldn't have any difficulty with the idea that the L field that controls and organizes the several physical bodies we inhabit during our allotted span might occupy other bodies in other times or places. Moreover, as fields can travel immense distances at the speed of light, the other places need not be the planet Earth. L fields may be, to use Dr. Burr's term, our link with the universe, the basis of our cosmic connection. In this context, we might recall Roberto Asciuoli's enigmatic statement that there are 60 million souls in the universe, and only 4 million of them are incarnated at the present time. The rest, we may surmise, exist as unattached L fields, or in association with some other form of organization of matter. And when we recall too that according to relativity theory, mass is convertible to energy and vice versa, the idea of the existence of what Andrija called pure light being becomes plausible. Let's now consider the evidence for the existence of the T field. That minds can interact with each other independently of the channels of sense, and that mind can interact with matter independently of the laws of mechanical cause and effect, are facts established by physical researchers and parapsychologists over the past century to the satisfaction of all but a minority of die-hard orthodox scientists. The evidence for telepathy, clairvoyance and psychokinesis has demonstrated clearly the fact that thought is a field phenomenon. More recently, biofeedback research has enabled interaction between the T field and the L field to be measured and observed. The work of Elmer Green, which he reported at the May lectures, has shown that people can generate a T field that will slow their heartbeat or stop a wound bleeding if they are fed back through electronic circuitry information about these psychological states. Modern studies of memory too point to its being a field phenomenon. Brain physiologists today speak of memory molecules and envisage these as analogous to holographic plates on which an immense amount of information can be stored in a minute space. The information remains constant, but the memory molecule itself does not. Like all the other protein molecules in the body, it is unstable and subject to decay. Both neurosurgical experiments and observations of people suffering brain damage have shown that one part of the brain can take over the memory contents of another. So these contents must exist independently of the container, the brain cell. Experiment and observation too have established that memories are tremendously enduring. Old people recall in detail some events of infancy. To be enduring and to exist independently of substance or spatial location are properties of field phenomena. So memory functions afford us convincing evidence of the existence of the T-field. That T-fields can travel great distances instantaneously is proved by both anecdotal and experimental evidence for telepathy, or thought transmission. That they can attach themselves to material objects is suggested by the phenomenon of psychometry, or object reading. Psychics can pick up from material objects impressions and information about people, or events formerly connected with them, and many people who are not particularly psychically gifted are sensitive to the atmosphere or moods of places or people, especially when these are charged with violence or negativity. In religious, magical, and occult lore the world over, there are prescribed rituals for putting blessings or curses upon people or objects, i.e., for influencing them with a positive or a negative T-field. In the light of these considerations, some of the things Tom said in response to Andrija's questions about the Nine's mode of existence are interesting. The statements, "We are what we think," "We are at the time," "We are soul," "We are what we think we are at the time," "We are soul," and "We are energy," all are consistent with the idea that the basic mode of existence of communicators is a T-field, is as T-field. As we have seen, T-fields can interact with L-fields, which makes sense of the claim that extraterrestrials can manifest in various forms, including a human form, although they have evolved beyond the point of needing a physical body. The same rationale would explain the existence of the opposition, the negative T-field. As the human body is an aggregate of millions of fields of varying sizes and functions, all of which may come under the control of a dominant field force, giving the body as a whole a disposition towards health or disease. So a powerful cosmic negative field force might mobilize a body of subfields to work together negatively, and thus constitute an opposition to the positive evolutionary force. That a cosmic situation of such a kind and of such proportions exists is attested not only by the Ossining communications, but by some of the oldest of the world's mythologies. For instance, the ancient Zoroastrian myth of the cosmic contest between Ahura Mazda, the principle of light, and Angra Mainyu, the principle of darkness. Of course, the problem with correspondence is always that one doesn't know whether to regard them as mutually corroborative, or to consider one derivative from the other. The Zoroastrian myth influenced or was repeated in Judaism and Christianity, and as we get deeper into the mythic, cosmological aspects of the communications, the correspondences with Judaic Christian traditions and beliefs become more prominent. Some will see the correspondences as evidence of truth, and others will regard them as evidence that the conscious or unconscious minds of the participants have contributed to the material allegedly channeled. And I do not propose to attempt to arbitrate between these two basically subjective views of the matter here. The purpose of this digression has been to suggest ways of regarding the situation that was developing and some of the ideas that were emerging in the communications during these crucial weeks of September and October 1974. I have tried to show that neither the situation nor the ideas were inherently implausible. The thing I can't help the reader with is the implausibility that this particular trio of human beings were involved in this cosmic situation. The suspicion that there is a touch of megalomania in the idea of their unique destiny, or of paranoia in the idea that they should be subject to the attentions of the cosmic opposition, These things worry me too, but let's get back to the story. In point of fact, it was Diana who first fell foul of the opposition. It happened in the evening of the 15th of September, the day after the subject of the opposition had been raised by Tom, and he had given the specific instruction, "Be careful of your electricity." Recalling the circumstances and the event in a recent conversation with me, Diana said, "Soon after Asioli's death, I went to Ossining and my own psychic awakening started. I suddenly started seeing auras, thought forms, beings, energies, all that stuff. I'd never seen anything like it before. The attacks started coming with my awakening. I wasn't very experienced or discriminating in this area, and I suppose some of them weren't strictly attacks. I tend to freak out whenever I saw anything, but there was no doubt about the big one. The management had apparently said that the opposition might try to get at the three of them by attacking their loved ones, and had also made a point of telling them to be careful of electricity and using electrical appliances. But at that time, the management was shit so far as I was concerned, because it was such a short time after Roberto's death. So I ignored the advice and used the electric iron. After about 20 minutes I had to stop because there was this crackling in the air and a queer sensation of current running up my arm. I began to feel really strange. I told Phyllis and she made me lie down and put cold towels on my neck. Then all of a sudden the attack started. There are no words to describe it. It was as if something was trying to suck my consciousness out of my being. I knew very clearly that that was what was happening, that they were trying to possess me, to take me over, and I knew that if I would sit still, I would feel my consciousness being drawn back and down and out of me. It was a very strange feeling, but if I kept making erratic movements, I could pull myself out of it. Well, John came into the room to see what all the noise was about, and Phyllis told him to stay away from me, not to touch me, or else, she said, they might get you. Phyllis knew what to do. She wanted to get me outside and wrap me round a tree, which was what eventually happened. But at first, when she tried to drag me out, I fought. Then I experienced this click inside my head, this sudden realization that nothing could ever take my consciousness. I was suddenly stronger than whatever it was attacking me. I kept saying, "It's okay." There I'd been raging and hysterical a few seconds before, and now suddenly I felt calm and everybody around me was freaked out. I said, "It's okay, just get me outside." So they took me outside and wrapped me round a tree, and I had to stay there for about an hour. All that time I could feel the negative forces being drawn from me by that tree, and this incredible vibration that was in my body very gradually subsided. Later the same day that they held a communication session, which John opened by asking for some explanations of what had happened to Diana. Tom answered, they had been building since the 22nd of your August. In her weakened building, this had been building since the 22nd of your August. In her weakened condition, the negative forces were able to get through. When a being, whether it be one of you or one of yours, generates a fear or an anger, it then permits an energy wave. And as we had explained to you before, it was important to be careful with electricity, for this again creates another type of energy, which we and also other forces may generate on. Moreover, Tom went on to say, it was still a dangerous day, and they might have to leave suddenly. Not because there's danger for us, but because there's danger for you. And for the present they were holding, and John and Andrija could ask questions. Andrija was anxious to follow up a new topic, which Tom had introduced in the communication the previous day. He had led up to it in a roundabout way, and the conclusion came as a surprise to both Andrija and John. We know that there is a concern in your minds about the relation between you and the Nine. As you know, I am the spokesman for the Nine, but I also have another position, which I have with you in this project. I will try to give you names so that you can then understand in what you work and who we are. I may not pronounce who I am in a manner which you would understand because of the problem in the being's brain. But I will explain so that the doctor perhaps will understand. I am Tom, but I am also Hamarkus. I am also Harenka. I am also known as Tum, and I am known as Atum. Yes, we know something of these names historically, of course, Andrija said. If you understand that, Tom went on, you may understand that my position is in this situation and in this project. Before there was light, there was dark, and dark lasted longer than light. It is now time for it to be balanced, and this was attempted 5,000 of your years ago, and more, and now it is again the time, and this time it must be accomplished, because the planet that you exist on cannot exist many more of your years otherwise. The references to ancient Egyptian civilization were quite new in the communications, and Andrija was anxious to follow up the topic. So when he was invited to put questions the following day, he said, I'd like to go on with the identifications that you were giving for yourself, Tom, and the other names of which you have been known. I was particularly impressed by Hamarkus. Could you tell us? Tom didn't let him complete the question, but said enigmatically, I am the day, I am the evening, I am the mid-noon. Andrija wasn't in the mood to be sidetracked by enigmas, however. There was something he wanted to know. How did the Egyptians come to build the Sphinx and name it after you? There was a long pause before Tom said, You have found the secret. He then said he would have to verify whether this information could be disclosed, and after a pause for consultation he said, The true knowledge of that will be released to you another time. But I will say briefly to you concerning the Sphinx. I am the beginning. I am the end. I am the emissary. Another enigma. Though the word emissary was interesting. Emissary? From where? From the Nine, presumably. Support for the view that ancient Egyptian law and symbology were so strange that they must have come from another world. Tom now said, Today is a day of danger, and we must be very cautious. There are electric impulses in your atmospheric air conditions. We are having interference. You are being probed. We must speak guardedly. So I finish this for now, chapter 5, because I don't want to run the risk of reading in vain if it's garbled.